Yo guys, welcome to another episode of the Art of Selling podcast. On the show, we talk about the best kept sales secrets and it can potentially help you sell more stuff to more people. Over the last couple of years, we've spent close to R2 million learning from some of the best marketing gurus and business coaches out there. And now we're sharing all of that information with you for free. I hope you enjoy it and I hope you find value in it. Today in studio, we've got a new guest, a new face to the Art of Selling podcast. We've got Jandre van Rensburg. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's obviously an honor to be here to share these things with you guys.
Cool, man. And then we got Gilbert Kompokwe.
Thanks for having me, the resident.
Nice, man. Actually, today I want to talk about something that you've got some extensive knowledge on and something that I'm very passionate about. And that is just obviously, the psychology of selling. But there is a buzzword going around that people are throwing around. And that buzzword is neuromarketing. And I want just maybe talk about it, unpack it a little bit, get people a better idea of what it actually is, what it means, and how they can leverage it in order to sell more stuff to more people. So, Jacques, in your perspective, neuromarketing, take it away. What is it, and at the end of the day, what does it really come down to?
Yeah, so it all comes down to people, right? We all sell to people, whether it's a boyfriend or a girlfriend, but it comes down to just simply understanding that the words that I've heard you say this many times, and I actually like the way that you phrase it, but it's the words that we choose to articulate a certain something that has an effect on people, and the way that we present ourselves or the way that something is portrayed in the value cycle of things is obviously what is super important. But if we look in the broader perspective of like neuromarketing, the word neuromarketing, it all comes down to the neuro aspect of things, meaning like it's connected to the marketing process, obviously the brain. And actually really, really interesting, I met a neuroscientist actually at the gym this local gym that I go to here, and I had this chat with him. And really, it all comes down to understanding that it's people and we all have brains and we receive messages like everywhere. This is the whole interesting part for me about this whole thing is I'm very passionate about this. And if I get a bit carried away,
We'll reel you in, don't stress.
Yeah, no stress. So it's just about understanding it's people. So that comes down to understanding that even everything that we look at, if we go to malls, like malls are designed to get more money out of your pocket. You walk in there, the stuff that you see left, right is like shiny. Everything is shiny. It catches your attention. It brings you into the maze. And once you're into the maze, you either walk out. Obviously, you walk out with less money than you walked in. That's why I have rule number one is like never take a trolley into a grocery store, because you'll just keep adding stuff.
until you've got a family and kids.
yeah, I guess so. We'll get there. But just to make my point, neuromarketing, the reason why I love it so much is because I know that one of my purposes in this whole process, one thing I've learned about myself is to be able to help people make better decisions. And in order to help people make better decisions, in order to optimize, to lead in a possibility of having overall better outcome of your life, it all starts with your decision making. But again, that comes back to the neuromarketing aspect of things, because again, the way we portray things, the way we sell things, it all is about simply just understanding that if I have a marketing message, if I have some message that's embedded inside of me that I want to share with people, like how do I differentiate? And again, it's just a fancy word of talking about consumer psychology, because I'll unpack it quickly here. There are multiple different aspects around it, but it all comes down to decision-making sciences. So in retrospect, basically just looking in terms of like complexity economics, these are things that are involved in it, but it's like people will, like, if you don't know what it means, like people will try to like sell you onto the thing of complexity economics. And really evolutionary thought is also connected into this. So if you guys have ever read Dr. David Buss or any of the really profound evolutionary psychologists, all of this stuff connects. But again, my point is that just really understanding that neuromarketing allows us to tap into the brains. If we understand all of the pain points of the people, and we understand what they're facing with, like their pains, what their daily lives is like every single day, all of that really drills down to the brain. Because once you get to the brain, it's like understanding how do I capture someone's attention. To give you guys just this example is that this is one of the best examples, that if you, for an example, like run an advertisement or push a message, it's like understanding that the brain is layered in 3 ways. So we have the croc brain, obviously, that basically goes towards, and this is something I learned from
The reptilian brain.
yeah. So this is something I learned from someone that pitched like that raised money, Oren Claff. So basically, the principles are just drilled down to understanding that number one, we have three layers how people make decisions. So if they would see something, it would be obviously the croc brain would be triggered. Then it will filter down into the second part of the brain, then like in the middle part of the brain, which will allow us to make social contextual decisions. So first, it's like if we have the boom, the clap of something, then we go, what happened?
And
What
get
just
your
happened? So if
attention, yeah.
something comes across your peripheral vision, it's also then understanding, okay, so if it's something nice, if it's maybe a female and you know, like and like there are certain
In a
things
red
that trigger
dress.
in your brain, right?
Yeah.
So that's a part of it. And then the middle part of the brain, obviously the social context. If I walk into a room, if a policeman flashes his badge, all of a sudden you pay attention, hopefully. And that brings it down to the last part is obviously the complex side of the brain where it's the unpacking the complex things of like math and like complex decision making. But that if you think about it in that framework is like really understanding that's how you can structure your message, right? Capture attention first, educate, roll down to the next thing. And it's really, I mean, like there's so many things I can talk about on that point, but
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is understanding how the brain works and being able to say the right things or show the right messages at the right time in order to get people to do what you want them to do.
yeah, I mean that really also then comes back down in understanding what is actually happening in the world. Because if you want to differentiate or you want to stand out as a brand in the world that we live in today, we all know how important brand is, but how do we get actually to a point where our message is differentiated, is understanding that what is currently happening inside of the market? Like what messages are being portrayed? Like how are people receiving those messages? And there are many ways to go about testing and finding this, but one of the ways is called just implicit response testing. We don't engage too much and at self-built system side, we don't engage too much in implicit response testing, but there are ways in how you can engage with it, which will allow you to basically test narrative, what's currently happening in the world. So it's like understanding that in COVID, some things happened, or the C word, if I'm allowed to say it or not, some things happened. And this then shifted narrative towards like maybe like a more, I'm just saying maybe, I'm not talking based on data, but this maybe shifted perspective based on like understanding that people have a more safe environment or not that much risk-taking environment because they learned a bunch of stuff. But all of this, I know you guys love data, but all of this is obviously derived off of data and really being able to make data-driven decisions.
Yeah, man. Customer psychology is so crucial. And obviously neuromarketing is a big part of that, is understanding the brain, how it works, and ideally how to put messages in front of people, whether it's words or whether it's visuals, in order to get them to be more receptive to it and then to get them to act in the way that you want them to act, which is, you use the example, walking into a mall. Everything is strategically designed in a way for you to be receptive to the messages and be open to spending money. And at the end of the day, even if you walk into a specific shop in the mall, you know, the products have been laid out strategically in a way for you to pay attention to the most popular products or things that people believe that you might really want. So when you in the aisle before you have to pay, what do you see? Candy bars. And if you've got kids, everybody's going to grab it. And it's that basically hacking the brain in a way. And I'm using the word hack in not a negative connotation. Obviously, it can be seen that way, but it's understanding how the brain works and being able to put messages in front of your customers, because we are referring to businesses trying to grow, businesses looking for customers and clients, understanding how to put your message in front of those people in a way where they will be receptive to it and they will be inclined to act after that. And when it comes to a business, there are literally three components that is crucial for you to convert a stranger into a customer. You are going to have to grab their attention. That could be done through ads, and we can use the ads example. There are obviously many ways to reach out to a potential stranger, but let's use ads for example. Ads will be on the front of the strategy where we were going to have to grab their attention. We're then going to have to convert that attention, and Gil, you and I have spoken about this in a previous podcast on running Facebook ads specifically. We're going to have to grab that attention and then direct that attention to a specific destination, which will be the site. which will then speak to the middle part of the brain, which is what you were talking about now.
Yeah.
And then the website will have to be designed in a way to get them to be receptive to the message and help them to actually act in a way that's hopefully constructive to them. But it's getting them excited about taking the next step.
Yeah.
And that's where the back end sales process comes on. And I think when it comes to neuromarketing, it's not something that you apply somewhere in your marketing strategy. It's not something that you just apply in a specific spot across the strategy. It is really something you apply everywhere, wherever you can. And that's why I'm mentioning the ads, the website, and the back end sales process, because if you can apply the methodology around of neuromarketing into those different aspects of your business, you will see a higher sell-through rate.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people would only apply it on the front end or the back end, and it's really looking at consumer psychology and see how it's applicable to all aspects of your business.
Yeah. I see it through the scope of having a full funnel perspective of understanding that the whole game. So I will frame it as that we play this. If it's a growth marketing kind of like activity, it's like the whole game is to increase everything that we do. Obviously, is to increase the conversion rate. Once we can increase the conversion rate, there are multiple components that we can unpack with that. But it's like having a full funnel view, and then funnel in perspective of just understanding what the actual whole thing looks like. You know, like where do we start, where do we end, and then the best way to usually see this, and I do this for fun in a nerdy way, I guess. But I would look at different companies. You know, I've been a lot more since I've obviously touched base with you guys and the stuff that we've been doing. It's like I've been a lot more like paying attention to some e-commerce stuff, but it's like being able to reverse engineer that process and also see what other people are doing. You know, but then again, asking the question, and this comes back to a lot of like conversion rate principles, or like a lot of people will just simply in the physical application of the consumer psychology will just have this hippo. They will either have to like follow the hippo principle or the copycat principle, where the copycat principle is like if you want to design a website and you know you want to make it look nice. Most people just want to make it look nice, and you know, because they care about what it's personal to them. It's like, that's my website. It's like, I wanted it to look nice, but they forget the fact that first we must design it and engineer it for the selling purposes. Yes, then we can work on the nice looking of the website, but the principle on the copycat principle is that most people will just go out, they will observe what top people are doing or someone in their industry is doing without them even knowing if they've tested that thing and if it actually works. And then the second principle on the physical application of the consumer psychology is just understanding that it's like hippo. Well, hippo is this one that I'm addressing now. The hippo is just basically understanding it's like maybe the person that's in charge will just drive a certain narrative because he thinks it's the right way. But again, all of this thing comes back to the data and how we make the decisions. But again, it's a cohesive view of, or holistic view of everything that's happening, starting at a point and understanding it starts with our messaging. I don't know if you would agree with that. It starts with the messaging
100%.
and then, you know, moves over to the demand, and then moves over to, obviously, once the demand is generated, to wherever they go, whatever that might be, a funnel, a website, whatever that might be. And then what happens after that is obviously we need to put some.
There's different elements that come into play. I think it's understanding that psychology is the missing piece. If you're not getting the most out of your marketing, whether you're running Facebook ads, Google ads, whether you're doing email, 99.9% of the time, it's not because you're not using the platform correctly from a technical standpoint. It's more that you're not connecting with people from a psychological standpoint. And that's really what neuromarketing is all about, is to understand that if you're a marketer and you really trying to generate more leads for your business or customers for your online store, whatever it may be, it's understanding that these platforms all exist and anybody can jump onto those platforms and run an ad. From a technical standpoint, it's not the most difficult thing to do. Yeah, obviously there are nuances around that, and you've got experts who, on a quantification scale, understand it on a technical level really, really well. But anybody can boost a post at the end of the day, and that's quite simple to do. But the reason your boosted post is not working 99% of the time is, yes, there's targeting capabilities that can be improved. But I think majority of the issues is that you completely forget or neglect the psychological component of resonating with your customers. You forget the psychological component of grabbing people's attention, converting that attention into intention, and converting that intention into action. And I think the intent might be there, but you still have to take action.
Mm.
So, and I think those are the three ways I sum it up is,
Mm.
in my mind, is that you need to put a message out there that's going to grab someone's attention, or you need to do something that's going to grab someone's attention. And that's the policeman walking in, flashing his badge.
Yeah.
Or that is the pretty girl walking past and it grabs your eye. It's understanding that is the message you put in front, or something that you're doing to grab someone's attention. After that, it's really understanding, now it's about creating intention. And then after the intention is about making sure they take action. And customer psychology, customer behavior, neuromarketing, all of these things help you streamline that whole process from start to finish.
Yeah.
I like this conversation. One particular reason is because, specifically from a sales side, and we've touched quite a bit as well ourselves on consumer psychology and marketing. And I think to hear it also from a salesperson themselves was quite intriguing and interesting. And I actually wanted to find out, and maybe for the larger public as well, is like, in your opinion, especially from a sales side, what are those psychological elements that one under the neuromarketing umbrella that maybe you employ yourself, or what makes it effective?
Yeah.
From a sales side.
Yeah.
I think that for me is also quite interesting, and I'm sure the broader audience would love to hear that.
Yeah, so I think if from a selling perspective, if you're really trying to, let's just say directly forcefully or whatever you might look at it, increase your sales, it's like literally just understanding whether it's forceful or not. It's like sales, all sales is, if you're on a sales call with a person, or if you're training a sales team, or you're doing these things, it's just really understanding that all you're doing is you're transferring belief, right? So it's energy. So it's just energy, and understanding that if you want to transfer that, you understand you're a superstar salesperson, or whatever that might look like. How do you get other people to be superstar salespeople? It's like, number one, firstly, identifying those character traits, and they're usually correlated with, and I know I've shared this story with Jandre basically, and it's like understanding that you want to be finding, if you're looking at ramping a person on that perspective, and now we'll latch it onto this whole conversation. Now, you want to be finding someone that is hungry, young, and if it's a guy, I've seen girls that are very, very proficient at the sales too, but usually the guys are easier to find. They're a little bit more dominant, and they can learn things, because we learn through osmosis, through that's why we need to have a superstar salesperson that's actually killing it. But my point is, how does neuromarketing tie into this whole process of actually physically selling stuff? So it's like, again, it comes down to understanding that all we're doing is we're transferring the belief of the product. So when you sit down and you face another person, whether you engage with persuasion principles, or whether you engage with influence principles, all those things stack up. Credibility, status delta, those things are what we need to engineer into the process before the sale, as they say, starts before the initial sales call, or before the initial engagement with the person, because all the things you do leads, again, credibility, status delta, all these things that you do, they lead to a frame. Once you've built a frame and you're there, like, you are then able to take whatever knowledge you have about that, and you're able to be presentable, and then you're able to, it's literally having a chat. It's like you're literally having a chat with a person, and you have so much belief in the product or whatever you're trying to sell, because you understand it, number one, and number two, like, specifically in that time, in that moment that you have with the person, your only job is to transfer that belief to that person, that this thing is the best and or the only option for them. And before that you reach that desired outcome, all of the little marketing tactics that we have, the sales stuff that we do, or the marketing stuff we do, it's not completely duds, but it's like understanding that that's the inflection point. If you are on a perspective of, like, and I know we talk about this a lot, but it's like, if you're selling something directly to B2B, it's like when you have an initial sales call, that's where obviously these things apply. But if you're looking through a lens of like e-commerce, or you're looking through a different lens, it's like these things still apply. They all build up. I mean, if you hop onto someone's website and you haven't seen anything about their stuff, like the 7-hour dependency rule in marketing obviously will state that they have to see more of your stuff and before they make a purchase decision. But how do they make that decision? Is through looking at what stuff do you put out. That's why posting content is actually so important, in my opinion, because people will obviously, they will do the good old Google, right? They will do the good old Google,
multiple touch points.
Yeah, and that it increases the throughput of you actually keeping that frame. And I mean, because you keep providing the value. and the more the value that you provide, the more consistency there is. And yeah,
I think it's safe to say that neuromarketing applies to everything in the sales process from A to Z, and I've mentioned this before. But it is more the execution of it that changes. So from a B2B standpoint, it can be easily done over a sales call, and there's specific ways that you can leverage the tactics on a sales call in order to increase the actual conversion rate from people who jump on a call versus the people who buy. And I almost feel like the best neuromarketing strategy is just to be authentic and true.
yeah,
Like, that's one thing I've realized is in the beginning when we started, you try and persuade people into buying the product. And I've reached a point over the last couple of years where just being truthful and honest is one of the best ways to do it. And you can call it a tactic if you want, but if you are truthful and honest and authentic, people appreciate it, and people also better understand what they're actually getting into.
yeah,
And it's one of the most powerful strategies out there. People appreciate it. They trust you. It's authentic. Especially from our perspective, it's like if we had to jump on a sales call with a potential prospect, it's just, listen, this is all the things that we can do. This is all the successes that we've had. We have the data to back it up. There's still a risk in it for you. If you don't want to take the risk, rather put your money in the bank and get 5% a year back on it. But this is still a business. And if you're in business, you're always at risk.
Yeah.
But we are here to eliminate your risk because of these successes that we've had. We understand the industry. We understand what you're trying to do. And we're pretty good at doing it. Does it mean that you're going to win? Not necessarily. Does it mean that we can help you win? Absolutely. We're going to increase the odds of helping you win for sure.
yeah,
And it's almost like when you have that attitude of, listen, I've put all the puzzle pieces for you on the table. I've shown you all the cards. This is the story. Now it's clear that you know that this is actually authentically the best and truthfully the best solution for you. That's when you start building the best relationships from a B2B perspective. But on an e-com perspective or from a B2C perspective, the same thing applies. It's just being truthful.
yeah.
It's just being authentic. It's just being transparent.
Yeah. I'm hearing you say what I'm ultimately, I think if you had to say B2C, B2B, I'm hearing P2P.
Yeah.
People to people.
People to people.
And that's just it. It's being humane. It's being authentic. It's being real and telling it like it is, even though, it may not be necessarily what the other person might want to hear because of all the marketing messages that they've received about particular results or particular guarantees or whatever the case may be. And I hear where you're coming from. It probably even separates you from the rest because you are literally doing what most don't, which is P2P, which is person to person, genuinely. And I love how you're expressing it, like making them believe. Right, a logo can't just make you believe. A product can't just make you believe, but the people that inspire those products make you believe.
Hundreds.
Yeah.
This latches on. I have one more point to just latch onto that. So what I'm seeing in the current, well, not just the economic environment, but also in the world, because of everything that's happening with the technology, with AI, with multiple different technologies, really, but AI just really. With the making famous of the word AI now, everyone is an AI engineer now. But with all of that stuff that happens is that information, so the word information agnostic, because all of this information is becoming now available to people at large scale, I'm seeing also that this ties into this thing that you just mentioned, this point that you just mentioned, this relationship kind of thing where humans are involved in the process and that I'm knowing I'm actually talking to a person, and that is going to be so much more, or not, it is important, but so much more attention should be spent on that right now if you're trying to grow your business, because of the AI, because it's so good, many times you won't know whether you're talking to a person or whether you're talking to a robot. And now that creates a, I don't want to be talking, I don't know, am I talking to a real person? So that creates this thing in people's brains where it's like this disconnect, where if they know that they're actually talking to a real person, they can see it's not some pre-recorded thing that's sent to people. That is where I believe a lot of businesses can really focus on, because we are still people. We still sell to people, and the AI component is there. It is important, but it's also understanding that we are emotionally connected. And so far of my understanding with AI, it's not too great at that part yet. But yeah, anyways, that's
I think what it boils down to, and to ground off this episode and to conclude, is obviously neuromarketing in a nutshell is basically customer psychology, customer behavior, understanding all these things, but how it applies to the actual brain and how you can leverage certain tactics and strategies in order to get people to pay attention and be receptive to these messages, because that all happens in the brain, and then ideally getting them to take action. And neuromarketing is not something that you just apply to or customer psychology or these psychological tactics.